Hello, everyone. It's Hannah Boyd here from New Leaf Naturopathic Health in another one of our lovely conversations with beautiful people from our community. Today, I'm talking to Keturrah Stoltenberg from Motherhood with Keturrah. Hello.
Hello, Hannah. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for taking the time. Keturrah is someone that we've both worked together with patients over many years now, I think. My patients have used you and vice versa. And it's really nice to get together and have a chat about how we help our patients together, which is lovely. Tell me a little bit about what you do, tell the listeners about what motherhood is and how you help people.
Yeah, so thank you. Yes, I do admire your work, and I think it's wonderful that we can work together with different people. It's always exciting to know that our, the people that we care about are getting the best care. So, yeah, I'm Keturrah, and I have two adult sons now. I had my first son, 25, he's just turned 25, which makes me feel very old. But I did have him reasonably young, around about the same age that he is now. So I would say that I've always been a sort of a very nurturing person that was very interested in people's needs and very empathic and loved natural medicine and saw the value in it in my life. I was very maternal and wanted to have children young, so fell pregnant at 24, which was intentional, and then again when I was 29. So I have two boys and quickly saw that there were gaps in the system, that there were areas in which I know were not being handled as well as they could be. And that was right back to I conceived quite easily, which I know that that's not always possible for a lot of people. But pregnancy and antenatal care, I had an OB who was quite a bully and really was not kind. And I thought, straight away, I thought, what? What? This is not nice. This is not the way it should be. Like, this is a woman that is going through something really special. And I just couldn't understand why I was not being treated with respect. Birthed my children, both were quite rapid and, very fast and furious sort of births, but not without their complications postnatally. And then I very much noticed how I felt quite discarded. As soon as the placenta was born, it was like, right, your job is done now. And now we'll move over to the baby and all eyes, my support team. Because even though I didn't know about doulas, I decided to welcome three other women along with my husband into my birth because it just felt right. And everyone was over at the baby, and I was lying there in a bad way. And have you lost my sound? No. And yeah, and then coming home, I thought, okay, I quickly internalized the messages I think that I had inside of me that were coming from obviously external things, that this was a solo role. And this was something that I just had to get on with, and I had to, do it single-handedly, regardless of my postpartum physical recovery, regardless of how much sleep or lack of sleep I was getting. It was on me, and it was my responsibility. And there was a little voice inside of me that just kept saying, this does not feel right. I don't feel like this is the way it's meant to be. However, in that time, especially in a country like Australia, there was no talk of postpartum support. I didn't have family around. No one my age was having children. And so it was a very isolating and lonely time. Maybe I didn't actually realize that at the time, but yes, it was very difficult. And I just thought, okay, this is the time that I want to support women the most, is in this postpartum period, when she comes home and when she's sort of like looking at her baby and thinking, now what? And that's how I got into this work. But it took a little bit of time for me to focus on postpartum because, as I said, postpartum was a little bit slower in becoming kind of, I don't think it's mainstream awareness, but in becoming like even aware that is a thing, that is not a luxury. So initially I started as a perinatal massage therapist, and then a birth doula, an infant massage instructor, and, lots of other things in between.
It's we do a lot of fertility journeys at New Leaf, so the other end where we're trying to help women and families start their families. And there's a lot of focus that goes into preconception care. That always has. There's a lot of publicity about statements from the World Health Organization, statements about what women and now men should be doing to improve their fertility chances. So, you know, you, I love the privilege that I have as a practitioner to help women and partners and families through that journey. And, often a lot of women are quite shocked when they get to pregnancy and they go, oh God, I've got a doctor, I've got an OB, I've got a nurse, I've got all these people caring for me. I've never had so much care before. And I always make the slight joke that don't worry, they'll all forget you once the baby comes, and but I won't, and I think there's people like yourself that obviously don't let that happen as well. And it is wonderful to see so much more mainstream support for postpartum uh, families, because it is such a time of confusion, particularly when the world has changed so much. We're much more isolated, we're more digitally connected, there's less community around people. Families are away. I constantly have patients that have families that live in other countries or other cities. So getting that support is not as easy. And I know that my patients that work with the postnatal doulas, they just get care that actually just means a lot to them. So um, yeah, I can imagine having that experience yourself and going, I need to help these women, that so they don't feel alone. So when you help your women with your doula services, do you do like a little bit of all of those things in? Like, how do you know when to bring what tool and what hat in when you're helping people?
Yeah, so I definitely feel like I give, a comprehensive approach and a holistic approach to postpartum care. And my immediate focus is the mother. So I provide mother-centered care. I feel like we all are aware of the term the birth of a baby. We're all quite happy and comfortable with talking about that a baby has been born. But we don't often hear, how are you going with your birth, mama? Because there is also, I believe, a birth of a mother. And so she's going through some of the same vulnerabilities, some of the same, as you said, confusion, shock, trying to assimilate her birth experience and then bring that into a situation where she's not getting. A lot of things are working against her. Her hormones are very disrupted. Her sleep is very disrupted. So when I walk into somebody's home, I kind of just like to see where they're at that time. So I don't go in with necessarily an agenda, but I go in and I observe the mama and see, what her facial features look like, what her mood seems like, whether she looks like she's ready for a sleep or a cup of tea, or whether she looks a bit depleted. And so we start there. So I think the emotional focus is the initial one, and then we go from there. So then she'll tell me how she's feeling, what she would, what would benefit her the most that day. So sometimes it's body work, sometimes it's, getting her a cup of tea and something to eat. Other times it's just letting her have a sleep while I look after the baby, or doing a few chores around the house. So I'd say very much it's see where she is and then meet her there, and that's where we take the support for the day.
I think so many of the new mums and new parents I speak to, when, you do go in and you like, no, it's fine, you go down, I'm just going to do the dishes. I mean, their mind is just blown that they can get that kind of help. And it's such a simple thing, but it means so much to have that extra hand on deck to be able to hold the baby while they can have a shower or do something. I mean, it is, I think, a lot of, I mean, I'm interested to know, like, a lot of your patients, clients, are they first time parents, or are they often second time parents that are going, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to, make sure that I get more help this time. Is there a pattern in that you see with the different people that you help?
Yeah, I would say for a long time it has felt like it's been second time parents for that reason, is that they've had that experience and they're like, okay, now I know that this is bigger than me, and this is something that I need to prepare a bit more for. But interestingly, lately I feel like it's a bit of 50-50. So there is a lot of first, which I'm so thrilled about, because it means that women are actually factoring this in to their planning, and they're realizing that. In fact, quite a few are saying to me now, I'm not even putting so much emphasis on the birth now. I know that that's going to be, difficult and or challenging in some way, but I feel like that's a day. Whereas when you come home, that's forever. And they want to give themselves the best start as a new family of three. But I always remember, just getting back to what you're saying about how little things can make a difference. This stood out to me. It was a woman having her second at the time. Yeah, I've supported her through two, her second and third. But I walked in one day and I just said my usual, "Can I make you a cup of tea?" And she burst into tears. And I said, "Oh, has it been a bit rough last night? And she said, "No, I can't remember the last time somebody offered to make me a cup of tea."
Oh my gosh.
And it really, really stayed with me. It touched my heart so much. And I thought, never underestimate, not even asking, just doing,
Yeah.
just walking in, popping the
And
jug on. Yeah,
never underestimate a cup of tea. I mean, obviously, as a herbalist, that's where I'm at all the time with what tea you're
absolutely.
drinking. But it is those little things. And I think, when you speak to women in that postpartum kind of fog, the days seem long. It could, the day that how I don't they lose track of what day it is. That they're not getting that consistent sleep, which also doesn't help. So, just the little things. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I definitely encourage, if my patients can, get some kind of support, or actually just starting that I mean, I start that conversation really early with my patients who um, are in pregnancy. What's going to happen afterwards? When this is a conversation we don't want to be having at 37 weeks. We want to be having it as soon as possible, so you can plan for those times. And I mean, when do you first sort of start speaking to women? When do they start sort of giving you a call and saying, I think I need to do this support? What time in their pregnancy is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, it just varies so much. Like some women actually have contacted me when they're thinking of having a baby. Which is rare, but it does happen. And they're like, "Oh, we like to be really organized. And so we want to get this in. We want to make sure you're available next year in this month." But then others are leaving it right up until the day before. In fact, one mother recently was in labor and she decided to send me an email while she was in labor. And I was like, "Can you just please focus on your birth right now? Don't worry, I'll be there for you."
That's that's lovely. She was panicking about other things. Yes, just get
Panicking because
through the day.
she came at 38 weeks and she expected that she had that extra 2 weeks to do all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I think probably about three-quarters of the way through is the most common time. And maybe it's because they've had like another professional like yourself, or they've been to birthing classes or something, or they've read the Hen Oi book, The First 40 Days, or something like that, and it sparked their interest, and they thought, yeah, that would be a good idea. So
So obviously, as a naturopath and nutritionist, and a person that's always trying to encourage people to eat more delicious food in their life, because I love cooking and love food. Some of the food that you make looks so delicious. Like, do you use that First 40 Days book as a guide, or like where are you getting your influence for the types of food that you're preparing for your patients? Because it looks like I want to eat it all the time. Like, why does it have to just be for postpartum women? It looks delicious.
it doesn't have to be. And that's, I think, the message that I do want to get out there, that
Yeah.
any time in our life. But yes, I think that it is a very special time in which food plays a big role, in the restoration of that woman's body. So I get my inspiration from that book, from many books, from my own. I've always loved cooking, so I've always got a pot of food cooking on the stove. And I really have always loved that hearty sort of food, so that really kind of nurturing, grounding, slow cooked meals. So I think, women are very, very hungry after they birth, as you know. And
And because they're not sleeping very well, they're not getting a lot of those hunger cues a lot of the time. They're sort of missing them, going, I don't think I'm hungry. Maybe I just need a coffee, or maybe, and that it is quite common with people who have sleep disturbances, that they're just not, they wake up and they don't want breakfast, but actually they do need breakfast because they're just not getting those cues that they need. And I think postpartum women are a very good example of not knowing that they're hungry a lot of the time as well. So
absolutely, yeah. And it's honestly one of the best things that anybody can provide, whether that's friends, neighbours, family, strangers, meal services, or whatever. is if you don't know what to do, and if you do know what to do, don't worry about what you were going to do and just bring food.
Yeah, just bring some
Just
food.
bring food, because also, but as you were saying, like it does matter what you eat, not just how much you eat. But some food is better than no food. But yeah, that woman's digestive system is quite vulnerable at that time. It's quite sensitive. She's had a lot going on in there. She's got a wound in there that we are often unaware of because it's inside. She's bleeding. Her belly is quite dry and quite airy. So the foods that I think are most beneficial for that woman are warm foods, especially. So no salads and cold smoothies and things like that. Um, Slow cooked foods, moist foods, oily foods, sweet as in stewed fruits and things like that. And they're the foods that are going to be, nourishing her the most, helping her digestive system and helping her just fill up that space again with warmth and goodness. Yeah.
Delicious. Yeah, my new favorite saying for my patients is, when I'm trying to encourage them to kind of just eat a little bit more, which is actually the thing that most people, whether you're postpartum, pregnant, or just living your everyday life, people need to eat a little bit more food most of the time, is we are not trees. We do not get our energy from sunshine. We actually need to get our energy from food. And so if it's not in front of us eating it, then we're going to have low energy all the time. And postpartum particularly is one of those times. I mean, having that food that's just in the freezer or the fridge or that someone brings, it just must be an absolute, lifeline to some of those women. They don't need to think about it. It's just there. So,
Definitely. And also the snacks, the nutrient dense snacks in between, because the meals aren't enough, especially if that woman is breastfeeding. She needs a lot more.
so what are your favorite snacks for women? Do they need to be warm and cooked as well, or are you happy that people have a couple of those cooler uncooked snacks in there as well?
We
Because
do
it's
have some like chocolate nutty clusters and um, things that, yeah, some raw snacks, some raw foods that are snacks, but generally I still like them to be warm. So our lactation cookies um, have a like there's always black sesame in things. There's always goji berries, there's oats, there's nuts, there's, things that are really nutrient dense. There's a lot of ghee used. And yeah, I still want the snacks. And if it is something like a type of bread or a type like as in a fruity bread or something like that, I still advise that it's warmed up and ghee is added to the top.
yum. Yeah, no, there's some of those lactation cookies. They're very delicious, I have to say, which is great. You've done a good job with those. So I guess, from me as a practitioner helping women through postpartum, it's looking at the energy and the mood as well. Like, I mean, how do you navigate that sort of emotional roller coaster that women are on? I mean, you're sort of very front line with a lot of those you mums. There's a lot of emotion in those rooms. I mean, what are the common things that you're seeing that you'd like to sort of let everyone know that that's normal and that it's, maybe common, maybe not normal if we don't want it to happen all the time. But when it comes to that sort of postpartum blues and then into something a bit more serious as well, what's the best advice that you can give women during that time?
Yeah, it is like it is so different from family to family. And so again, it's sort of just really trying to ascertain what their needs are and where they're at. And if possible, having these conversations before the baby is born, I think is really important because it is going to change you. And whether that's temporarily or long term, there are going to be some transitions, some changes, and these changes are going to impact us relationally. So with our partner, with our identity, with other people, with how we see ourselves in the world, and this is all part of that matrescence, right? So it is something that I feel like I wish we had more antenatal education about, and I try to do that. And you probably do that as well. But I think it often, regardless of how much preparation you can do, you can't really fully know just how you're going to feel afterwards. And it's such a roller coaster, as you said. You can be crying your eyes out one day, ecstatic the next day, or it could even change hour to hour. So I kind of just want to normalize all of it because everyone is so different and we're all affected in some way. I'm going to go out there and say we are all affected. And I think when we do accept that there will be change, it makes it a whole lot easier and less frustrating when it
Yes,
does happen.
it's hard to, you can't prepare for it, but accepting that it may happen and understanding there, and it's just that support network. I think having people around ready to talk to, and as you said, from your experience, everyone was looking after the baby, and no one, so many of my new mums, they go to the doctor for their 6 week checkup and this checkup, and no one's asking them how they are. They're not doing the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale as often as they should. They're not doing the care of the person who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and that really upsets me, because the role of that mother at that point of time, whether they're breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, it's still, there's a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, and it would be really nice to have more collaborative health space caring for what the mums are doing, and not just stressing out about the baby's milestones at that point as well. So, because the babies are generally always fabulous, they're always doing a good job, aren't they? So,
Yeah, and I always say, like, I feel it's not that I don't care for the babies, but I feel like if the mother is in, and the father, or the partner, whoever is in the team, if they are being supported, if they are being nurtured, if they are feeling, stable, then the baby is going to be absolutely fine. So that is the priority. And with regards to that, Edinburgh scoring system, the sad reality for a lot of women that I talk to is they don't want to fill that in, especially with, if I can say, when they go to the baby clinic, early childhood educators, or nurses, because they're often ashamed to say that they're not feeling great. And they don't want to be red flagged, or, I've had a woman say, I don't want my baby being taken away from me. It's so I wish that we made that much more normal. We normalized the fact that it's okay to have bad moments and it's okay to have bad days. That does not equate to being a bad mum. It is all very normal. Yeah, but I feel like also even the dads are not getting the education that they need as well. And they're coming in with a lot of pressure to be the person that's brave and strong and doing everything to support the mother and the baby, and that they can't show any emotion as well. So yeah, I really just kind of walk in, gauge where everybody's at, ask where they feel like, how are they feeling? Have they eaten that day? Um, have they been able to spend a bit of time together? What do they need in this moment? And somehow with that approach, we tend to get to the bottom of things, or at least maybe, raise a few things that they are unaware of, or too a bit nervous to say. And often mothers particularly don't want to tell their own mother or their own family members about their emotional needs. So this is when the postpartum doula is really handy, because it's just that sounding board. It can be a very one-sided relationship, so to speak, that doula is there for the mother.
yeah, not there for their own cuddling of the grandchildren, or the auntie or the uncle coming in to support. They're just there for that mum, which I love about the work that you do. What I also, I mean, speaking about partners and fathers or mothers of partners, the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale is actually suitable for partners to fill out as well, which I think is really, really helpful to understand. And when I mention this to my pregnant women or my new mums, then they go through the questions. They go, oh, I can actually understand how that would be helpful for my partner to get a little ball mark on where they're standing, because that scale it's not diagnostic. It's just a snapshot in time that says, how are you going today? I say, if you were just sitting on a beach in Vanuatu right now, you'd score pretty well, I can imagine. But there's days that you're waiting at the bus stop and things aren't going so good, and that's okay to have that thing. And this scale just gives us an understanding of where you are, and that's why the repeating it is so valuable, because you do
Mm.
pick up so much stuff on that. I definitely use it through pregnancy and into postpartum, and I think women are frightened to be vulnerable in that space because there's so much vulnerability in the work they're doing, learning how to be a mum if it's their first time, or learning how to be a parent to two kids or three kids. You know, their needs, they're already putting their needs further down that list of, hierarchy of care. So, why are they stopping to check in on their own mental health when their baby's crying or their baby can't poop, all those kind of things? So it's so, I love that there is so many more women using postnatal support now, which is great. So
Yes.
I love it. I love
And
it.
being honest, being more honest, actually, starting to realize it's okay to, share that they're not feeling great, that there's no judgment, that this is very normal. And that's why they're often seeking out a postpartum doula or somebody else in that area, is because they want reassurance that how they're feeling is okay and is normal. Yeah. So you
And
do it.
there's no one way to do it. I think there's a lot of women, or the world is very good at comparing ourselves to everyone else at the moment. You see it everywhere, Instagram, social media, all of it. It just gives this sort of inflated idea of how perfect everyone else is. And the reality is, it's not. I mean, you probably walk into houses and see little bits of wonderful postpartum chaos, which is the norm, and that's not, it's not perfect. And for me, obviously, as being a telehealth practitioner, I also have the joy of zooming into people's homes and getting to see their lives as they are, and where they're at. I mean, I think both of us are really there for the honest conversations with our patients. It's one of the things that I hear so much about you. You're very, non-judgmental and very caring about the people that you look after, and just meeting people where they're at is, it's not about perfect. It's just about just getting them the help that they need. So yeah, I feel very, very honored to be able to help people through that journey, when they're turning up asking for help. I used to, I've changed how I see women postpartum. I used to kind of think, I won't be another put a pressure on them, at the end when I sort of send them off their way to have their baby, before the baby comes, and we prep them for that and they know what they're doing. And I think a number of years ago I just went, no, actually the right thing for me to do is to book them in for that, 8-week checkup or 6-week checkup, or even sooner if we're concerned about certain situations. So they know it's there, and if they don't need it, they move it, they cancel. If they're doing good, that's fine. But it's catching up with them and having that sort of moment of, there's a relief that comes from that conversation, I think, at that point. So I push it out a bit longer than you get hands on straight away. I just but it is so important that we just share the stories and listen to the stories. I mean, that's part of, women are really good at supporting each other when we give each other a chance to. So
Absolutely. No, you do a fabulous job. I do hear very positive feedback about that, about you too, is that you really do care, and it's genuine and very authentic care. Um, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about holistic care. And that's how I see that I'm never kind of feel competitive with other practitioners or anything like that, because there's a role for everybody. There's such a space for everybody. And I think the more support that woman can get, the better, because that is going to give her such a well-rounded start to what is a very significant and memorable time. She
yeah.
will never forget the fact that you followed her up and asked, would she like to come in and have a bit of a chat, or could you visit, or whatever. She will never forget that, even if it was a non-postpartum food or a lasagna.
Nothing wrong with the lasagna sometimes, and people are going
That
to
is
make it.
great. I also believe in boosting the oxytocin. So if lasagna does that, great.
It's a very different type of work. I mean, I'm a real generalist in my practice. I see a lot of different types of patients. It's kind of what I love about my work. But I obviously, helping women make babies, start families, it's very different from sort of managing constipation, or, I mean, although the joy people get when they manage to resolve those issues is also very exciting for people. Or, I mean, it's a very different way of working with patients, because there is this different type of journey, and it is quite nourishing as a practitioner to be able to have the privilege to help those people. Often, you're one of the first or second people to know that they've actually fallen pregnant, that you're there from the beginning, and it's such a privilege, I have to say, and I think Women are so much more, just since I've been practicing, women are much more educated, much more aware of things that they should be doing. Sometimes that's helpful, sometimes it's a little bit too much information. But the fact that when they get that there's people who are like yourself that can actually be like, no, this is what we're going to do right now. This is stop Googling. This is the help you're going to get right now. And it's good. It's wonderful, wonderful postpartum doulas. I mean, that first 40 days book must have absolutely revolutionized the work you're doing. Were you already doing it before that book came out? You were, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I became a doula oh, 2009. So yeah, quite some time ago. But and even though I was trained and qualified to do birth and postnatal, there was still wasn't. It was a qualification on paper, but I didn't feel like it really had the traditional cultural element to it and the real nurturing side of it. It still was like, how many wet nappies does your baby have? Or it still was very baby centered. And so I feel like even though I was practicing without being acknowledged that I was doing postpartum doula work, it was those sorts of books that actually made it real for a lot of people. And so they would be like, they would accept that this is actually a role now. I really like the way that you develop your visit so that they are getting the postpartum visit, because what I found very frustrating is way back more than 20 years ago, when I was primarily doing post pregnancy massage, is they would just drop off straight away after the baby was born. And that's a very normal and common thing to happen with women, is as soon as the baby's born, their needs no longer matter and it becomes about the baby. And even when I was doing birth doula work, I still felt there was something missing to that, because there was like the one follow up and then that was it. And I was always thinking, they need more than
I
this.
need more. Yeah,
They
no,
need more.
they disappear, and then you'd sit there and think, oh gosh, I wonder how it went. Like I hope they went okay. And every now and then you get baby photos, and everyone looks happy and nice, and then they maybe, for me, they'd book an appointment maybe 6 to 9 months after they've had the baby, just off their own back, and it's for something about the baby. The baby's got eczema, the baby's constipated, but really what's happening is that woman is really struggling. I mean, partly because the baby's having some issues, but it's a great opportunity to go, I'm like, yeah, enough about the baby. The baby's fine, we can get him pooping, it's not a problem. Let's talk about how you are. That's really important.
Yeah.
So for me too, yeah, absolutely. Like when they go off and they have the baby, and you don't know how they're going to
I
be.
used to, yeah, feel really sad about it, and I'd want to follow them up, and I did message them to see how they're going, and it was just really hard to get that kind of, yeah, for them to see the importance that actually I don't have to put up with all of these symptoms. I can get some support. I can get some self care. I can look after my needs, and so a big reason why I just love being a postpartum doula is I'm getting into their space at the time that I know that they need it most. I'm not just saying goodbye after the baby's born.
No, it's not enough. I mean, because the beginning of that journey just lasts forever, doesn't it? For those women, it's soon they're toddlers, and then they're tweens, and then they're teenagers, and it comes with a whole other lot of issues.
Oh,
I've got lucky, I've got patients that I've seen through all of those journeys, and their kids, are older now, which is one of, I mean, Jacinta, who works for New Leaf, she's a fertility naturopath. She's working with grandchildren, I think, of the people that she's helped with before, which is amazing. That
yeah.
massive generational support through so many things. It's just lovely. So yeah, I love that about our work that we do. So it's good.
That gives new meaning to continuity of care, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Generational continuity of care. Lucky we're not going anywhere. That's that we can keep doing that stuff. So I guess just to sort of summarize, I mean, it's such an impossible question. You probably get asked this all the time, and I've in thinking of asking you this question, I thought, what would I say? That's really hard. But if there was like one or two things that you could say to every woman in their postpartum experience about to start, what would it be? Like, what would be the best advice that you could give them to sort of have a nourishing, kind, caring space for themselves and the baby? What would it be?
Yeah, so I hope this answers your question. The way I've actually written this one down, because I thought about it and I thought, what am I going to say? And then it just kind of it flowed. And I thought about so many of my clients over the last 20 years. And I thought, what are the things that are coming up again and again and again? And that is to plan for postpartum, prioritize it, but not just talking about things like, when can we have visitors? Should we allow them to come the first week or the third week? When is my partner going to work, back to work? Not just those things. I'm talking about the relationships you have within your home. So think about how you communicate as a couple, how having a baby is going to change you. The relationship is not going to be the priority between you and your partner for a little while. The spontaneity is not going to be there. Um, how things like sleep deprivation, mood swings, crying unexpectedly, your nervous system's going to become quite dysregulated at times, how those things are going to affect you as a couple. So that was something I thought is a big one, because more often than not, I see couples that are like, but I didn't know they were like this, or I wasn't expecting my baby to, like my partner to cry. I was expecting the baby to cry, but not my partner to cry. Or are we ever going to get our life back? Or so I really feel like the preparation in pre postpartum should be more around your relationship and you as a unit, the types of strengths and maybe things that are challenging in one another. And I really think there should be some sort of counselling before you have a baby, to be honest, just to kind of prepare you, because it is a shock and it is something that a lot of couples are like, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Um, I also think my second thing would be learn more about your baby's biology, learn about their sleep, what sort of affects their sleep patterns, what their sleep needs are. Don't necessarily just rely on the milestone developmental apps and comparison with other families, but use your intuition and use your watch your child, observe your child, learn their cues. It's a relationship with your child as well. So my advice is all about relationships, about the relationship with your partner and how that's going to be impacted, at least initially, and the relationship you have with your child, and knowing that they are a human. They're not a machine that you can, schedule and get a routine and get them sleeping and do things that are actually working against their hardwiring. They're not, their biology is important. And if you understand it, it also helps you to understand why you might need to contact nap a lot, why you might need to have them on your breast a lot, why they can't be put down, all of those sorts of things. And then above all, I would say be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your partner, to each other. Everybody is learning on the job and there's no manual, and it's a big transition for everyone. And you're not going to get it right all the time, and that's okay. There's no perfect parents and there's no perfect children. That's my reflections.
They're beautiful. No, and they're absolutely perfect. I think the communication is key. I think, I mean, I always you phrase yours so much more poetically than I say. I say you don't have ESP with your partner, no matter how much you think that you can. You need to verbalize everything that you need, expectations, and they need to do that as well. That is such an important part. And the advocacy for and intuition, I think, is also a really huge thing. Even if they've never been a mother before, they do know they need to trust their gut feeling about it. And that is I think one of the hardest things I see in for mums and parents going, no, like I've read this book and they're telling me to do this, or I saw this sleep coach and they're telling me to do this, but I actually feel like I need to do something different. And giving them the courage to go, trust that, go with what feels right is actually so much more important. So yeah, and a beautiful Keturrah. I love that. That's lovely. And kindness always, it's people are so kind to babies. And we can be so mean to ourselves, and I think be that nice kind reflection that you can, the love that you give to that newborn, you need to be throwing it on buckets and loads and you at the same time as you go through that journey. And that is hard sometimes. So having people around that may just help that is also really important.